You think you know the story of Five Nights at Freddy's. You know the bite of 87, you know the missing children, and you definitely know the purple guy. But the real horror of this franchise isn't the jump scare that makes you flinch, it's the unspeakable suffering hidden in the tiny, dark corners of the code. It's the secrets that Scott Cawthon put into the games that prove that human tragedy of Five Nights at Freddy is far more clinical, far more widespread, and far more painful than any popular theory suggests. The animatronics don't just move because a soul is trapped inside. They move because they're powered by agony, the lingering energy of the suffering, a horrific fuel source designed by William Afton himself. And this isn't supernatural, it's just the science of terror, and to understand the cycle, you have to confront the details that you've always missed. Today we're unlocking the 7 most disturbing Five Nights at Freddy's secrets that you missed. We're going to use the hidden files, obscure minigames, and the rare screen codes to answer the most terrifying questions. Who was William Afton abusing before the murders? What was the clinical blueprint for child abduction? And is the entire Five Nights at Freddy's 4 nightmare just a child's final agonizing breath? The truth is locked away, but the evidence is right here. Let's start the hunt for the truth by exposing the first secret hidden in a hospital room. We just established that the entire saga is built on agony, the raw energy of suffering. And where do we find that suffering at its absolute purest? In Five Nights at Freddy's 4. For years, the Five Nights at Freddy 4 gameplay was theorized to just be a dream. A child traumatized by the horrors of Fredbear's Family Diner is simply just having a nightmare about the animatronics. But when the fans started digging into the hidden files, and they started brightening up the rare screens and peering into the shadowy details of the room, they found a truth that makes the dream theory look like a pleasant bedtime story. The truth is far, far more horrifying and far more definite. The room that you're playing in is not a bedroom. If you look carefully to the right of the bed, only visible on rare screens or by enhancing the image, you will see 3 objects. First, the IV drip. This is the pole in the bag that's used to deliver fluids and medication directly into the patient's bloodstream. You don't have an IV drip stand next to your bed at home, but you absolutely have one in a hospital. Next to that, you have a bottle of pills, medication, likely painkillers or sedatives for a severely injured patient, and finally, the vase of flowers. These are not flowers that the child picked, these are flowers that visitors bring to the sick or the injured. These 3 details, when put together, are irrefutable. We're not playing as a scared child in his room. We're playing as the crying child, the victim of the bite of 83 who is dying in the hospital bed. This means that the game is not a random nightmare, it is the reality of a mind in its final agony. The nightmares aren't paranormal ghosts, they're the monstrous, grotesque manifestations of the child's deepest fears and the very real trauma of the bite that is slowly killing him. They are the final, terrifying breakdown of his mind as his life slips away. And if the clinical evidence of the room wasn't definitive enough, the ending of the game seals the coffin literally. After you survive the difficult final night, the night that we believe the crying child passed, the game ends. We see the final minigame where the familiar golden Fredbear and Bonnie plushies offer their promise to put him back together. But then the screen fades to black and then you hear it, the flatline sound. That very definitive sound, the high-pitched noise following by silence, is the sound of the medical equipment confirming that the patient's heart has stopped. It's the final horrible conclusion to the crying child's story, and it's the moment the nightmare ends because his life ends. The entire Five Nights at Freddy's 4 gameplay, the nights that we endure, the terror we face, it's all happening in parallel with his final agonizing hours in the hospital. And the horror angle here is profound. We often think of the animatronics suffering, but this secret forces us to confront the patient zero of the Afton tragedy. The child, betrayed by his own family, spends his last breaths being tortured by the images of the very things that hurt him, and the shadows become monsters, the gentle sounds become heavy breathing, and the darkness outside the door is the terrifying, inescapable reality of death creeping closer. The nightmares are the process of death, not sleep. And the suffering of this one child, this agony, it just doesn't end there. It becomes the remnant that infects everything, setting the stage for the next horrific secret, the power of vengeance. The agony of the crying child was immense, but it was just one source of fuel. The real engine of the supernatural horror in Five Nights at Freddy's is the rage of the missing children, and no entity embodies that pure, unbound fury like Golden Freddy. He's the ultimate silent specter, and the secrets hidden within the original Five Nights at Freddy's 1 code prove that he is far more than a simple deactivated mascot. He's the most powerful entity in the series, operating on a level of vengeance and the other animatronics can only dream of. But first, let's look at the jump scare anomaly. While the other animatronics require a specific progression, right? They move from camera to camera, they're going to force you to close the door. Golden Freddy breaks every single one of those rules. He appears seemingly at random after you view his poster, bypassing your defenses entirely. He's like a teleporting ghost with proof that the spirit inhabiting the suit is not limited by the mechanical body, but by pure vengeful will. He's not triggered by time, he's triggered by memory. He appears to Mike Schmidt because Mike is the son of the killer. But the real secret is his taunt. The flashing, chilling message, "It's me," that cycles across the screen. This is a direct, personal piece of communication. It's not a robotic failure, it's the spirit directly attacking the player. The lore suggests that Golden Freddy is possessed by two souls, but the dominant and vengeful entity is Cassidy. This makes the "it's me" taunt a declaration of identity and a promise of retribution. The pure, focused rage of Golden Freddy is terrifying, but the horror of Five Nights at Freddy's 3 location, Fazbear's Fright, is far more widespread. The entire building isn't just haunted by a ghost, it's sick. It's infected by a malignant energy and the core component of our horror lore, agony. And no entity shows the true infectious nature of this despair better than the Phantom Puppet. Now, the Phantom animatronics are usually dismissed as simple hallucinations, but they have a terrifying purpose. When the Phantom Puppet appears, he's unique among them. He doesn't directly cause a game over, instead he forces himself into your view, hovering and floating, and then disables your ventilation and security systems, which is the absolute lifeline of your shift. And why this specific attack, right? The original puppet is haunted by Charlie Emily, the protective soul who vowed to save the other children. Her entire mission was about preserving life and memory, but the Phantom Puppet is different. He's the building's agony given form. He's a ghost not created by a soul, but the overwhelming psychic despair that's soaked into the savaged relics and the burnt walls. The Phantom Puppet is a projection of the location's suffering. It forces the player, Michael Afton, to face not a physical threat, but a psychological breakdown. By shutting down the ventilation, the Phantom is doing two things. It's forcing isolation. It's trapping Michael in a claustrophobic, failing environment, and it's luring Springtrap. By disabling your systems, it ensures that the real physical threat, Springtrap, can approach undetected. The horror here is the profound spiritual contamination. The Phantom Puppet proves that the trauma in Five Nights at Freddy's universe doesn't need a body to survive. It only needs a space to fester. It shows even the most benevolent spirits, like Charlie's, can be twisted into the tools of psychological torment when subjected to enough raw pain. It is the building itself, sick with sorrow, screaming at Michael for his father's sins and forcing him to endure the same suffocating despair the children left. The building doesn't want you dead immediately, it wants you tormented. And that pervasive, inescapable evil is a theme that we see repeated outside the restaurant walls, where the corporate cruelty begins. The entire Five Nights at Freddy's saga, from the agony-soaked ruins of Fazbear's Fright to the final nightmare of the Pizzaplex, only exists because of one fundamental, terrifying truth. The corporate cover-up was perfect. The children were murdered, but Fazbear Entertainment successfully erased the entire tragedy from the public record. Your security office wall in Five Nights at Freddy's 1 holds the secret. Hidden within the shifting camera screens and the flickering lights, there are rare newspaper clippings that briefly flash into view. This isn't just the background detail, it's the official in-game documentation of the missing children incident. The clippings confirm the timeline of the murders, but they also will detail the horrific failure of the justice system. The text reveals that the suspect, William Afton, was detained and then released due to lack of evidence. Think about that for a second. William Afton, the killer, walked free. This wasn't a paranormal entity, this was a man who methodically murdered children, and the police couldn't stick the charges. The horror angle here isn't the ghost, it's the paperwork. Fazbear Entertainment didn't just passively let the case go cold, they ran a masterful campaign of corporate obstruction. The clippings talk about the restaurant facing closure, not because of the murders, but due to the unsanitary conditions and the odor complaints. The media narrative was completely redirected, and they buried the bodies of 5 missing children beneath a story about poor hygiene. This is a chilling truth that anchors the whole series. The company valued its brand and its bottom line more than the lives of the children. They were more concerned with suppressing the story and reopening the doors than with finding the victims or ensuring justice. The sheer audacity of this corporation lie is the engine that generates so much of the game's later horror. Because of this cover-up, the children's souls remain trapped in their animatronics. Their murderer erased from the world, their abandonment fueled their rage, turning them into the vengeful spirits that we face. The Fazbear franchise didn't just kill children, it stole their history. And that systematic coldness wasn't born in a boardroom, it was perfected at home. And that brings us to our next secret, the rarely seen minigame that exposes the domestic cruelty of the killer himself. The corporate lie was the public horror, but the next secret exposed the private domestic terror of the Afton household itself. Hidden inside Pizzeria Simulator is the obscure Midnight Motorist minigame. It's short, silent, and entirely missable, but it is one of the most powerful pieces of evidence that we have for William Afton's cruelty before he became a killer in the suits. In the minigame, we control a purple sprite, William Afton, who drives frantically to a small private house. And the atmosphere is tense when he arrives. When he arrives, he finds the door locked and is met by a clearly agitated figure who says someone has run off to that place again. The popular theory, and the one that the evidence overwhelmingly supports, is that the runaway child is Michael Afton, William's eldest son, the bully, the one responsible for the bite of 83. He's running away from his own father's toxicity, escaping the psychological pressure of a household ruled by rage. We know this because when William enters the empty room, he sees 2 critical things: a set of footprints leading through the window, and a clear implication that is a regular occurrence. William's abuse didn't begin with the killing of children, it began with the systematic breaking of his own son. He was so neglectful and so terrifying that his eldest child constantly fled their home just to find a moment of peace. This calculated, systematic cruelty and the ability to plan and inflict pain without remorse is William Afton's defining trait. He didn't stop at psychological abuse, and his next most clinical secret proves he's designed his animatronics to carry out the most grotesque form of physical abduction, as a part of a literal business plan. William Afton's greatest secret was making that cruelty corporate policy, and the proof is hidden in the sister location blueprints. And when you die in the game, you occasionally see these rare technical schematics, and they are the most damning pieces of evidence in the entire franchise. They confirm that the Funtime animatronics weren't just haunted, they were designed as machines for child abduction. If you look closely at Funtime Freddy's blueprint, you see every component meticulously labeled. And right in the torso, the heart of the machine, is a section labeled storage tank. This is a deliberate and horrific design flaw. It's not a battery compartment or a spare parts bin, it's a chamber built to contain a child's body. Now couple that with Circus Baby, and her design is even more gruesome. Her blueprints detailed a system of internal claws and a scoop, the very apparatus that famously murdered Elizabeth Afton. Baby's ice cream dispenser was an intentional design feature meant to draw children close. These aren't just accidental hauntings, these are meticulous engineered predator machines, designed by Afton to fulfill his dark desires under the guise of entertainment. This secret changes everything about the lore. It confirms that Fazbear Entertainment, or at least the subsidiary running the sister location facility, was founded on the principle of systematic human experimentation. The animatronics don't just kill, they capture and prepare the bodies. We're talking clinical, mechanical, and cold-blooded horror. The children aren't just dying, they're being dismantled, stored, and infused with remnant as part of a business model. The most disturbing realization is that Afton logged the entire process. These blueprints are his horrifying receipts. They show that he wanted to remove all of the chance and passion from the murder and just replace it to be more efficient and mechanical precision. And the blueprints actually show us the beginning of the end for the Afton legacy, but even after all the evidence, the hospital death, the psychological agony, the corporate conspiracy, and the mechanical blueprints, we have one terrifying secret that remains. And that despair is hidden behind the Five Nights at Freddy's 4 box. But after all the evidence and all of the clinical science and the corporate conspiracy, there's one secret that remains, and it's in the Five Nights at Freddy's 4 box. The box is revealed to you after you complete Night 7 of Five Nights at Freddy's 4. It's the entire saga's final punchline when Scott Cawthon once told the community that the pieces to solve the lore were all there, but that the contents of the box had changed over the years. The statement is the key to the horror. It means that the box, which should contain the definitive answer to the Afton tragedy, is permanently and intentionally empty. The horror here is not what's inside the box, but why it's locked. The locked box represents the unsolvable nature of the trauma. The players, the fans, desperately searched for the keys, believing they could solve the suffering, but Afton's crimes created such a deep, twisting layer of agony and confusion that the original, simple answer, the contents, became corrupt and lost forever. And the box remains locked, meaning that the definitive closure is impossible. This is the secret that guarantees the nightmare cycle will continue, fueling new games, new theories, and new sufferings, and the agony persists because the question can never be put to rest. The true horror of that box is that it forces the player to realize that the lore itself is a trap, a tragic loop where the solution is always out of reach, ensuring that the agony is eternal. The horror isn't just always the jump scare, it's the hidden secrets. It's the foundation of the entire universe that's built on corporate evil, mechanical abduction, and the agonizing, unresolved death. And we've learned that the true master of terror is the Five Nights at Freddy's 4 box, the final lock on the nightmare that can never fully be solved. What do you really think is in that Five Nights at Freddy's 4 box? Does the horror of the missing answer make the suffering worse? If you guys want to hear more gaming lore, make sure you guys hit that subscribe button, and I will see you guys in the next video. Stay spooky!